Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Today on the Focus on Why podcast, I am joined by Marina Conway-Gordon. Marina, welcome.
Hi.
Lovely to have you here. And Marina, tell us, what brings you joy in life?
What brings me joy in life? A whole lot of things bring me joy in life. But I really love people. I love people and stories. And that kind of sums up a lot of the other things that otherwise would take a lot of podcasts to talk about.
So tell me, what is it you spend most of your time doing right now?
I am a deep thinker, so I have to actually confess I spend a lot of time thinking, but often strategically and usefully though as well. So I spend a lot of time thinking about people's stories. Actually, I watch a lot of content myself. I'm a big content consumer. I love watching, films and things as well. And just hearing people's stories, that's what really lights me up.
And why do you love hearing people's, why does it light you up?
For me personally, hearing someone else share their real story, but also if they're kind enough to share the difficulties that they've had, I've found an incredible amount of identification with that, and it's allowed me in my personal development to feel not alone in some of those challenges. It's allowed me to feel, gosh, it's just like a sense of relief and actually kind of excitement as well when someone's telling their story, and I almost get this intuition of where they're going to go next and what they want to be, doing. And I kind of go, ooh, I've got this. Oh, I'm like, something's jumped into my mind. What do you think about this? And from their story, we kind of go into an amazing conversation. That's what usually happens.
And you mentioned a sense of relief and a feeling of not being alone. Why is that the case?
Yes, I think, I guess as a deep thinker, I can also think myself into, a negative space sometimes. And I think sometimes, for all the kind of reasoning that I do around something, what really gives me the perspective is someone else's perspective on it. I think I can spend a lot of time alone and work a lot of things out in a way in my head and with books and things, but actually it's really where I get the kind of gift is from someone else's experience and being able to compare that to mine in a positive way. And kind of make progress from there, really. I find that is a relief. Really, it's almost like a bit of it's like having a hot cup of tea or something when you're feeling a bit. Oh.
And is that how you've manifested your new business, purely around people's stories and your love for people's stories?
I think it was a couple of things. I mean, I think the love of people's stories was always there. And throughout my kind of previous marketing experience, it was always about working with that person's story and seeing how best we could get that out there, really. But I think I had this kind of epiphany in 2018, and I was on holiday, and I'd just taken my previous employment had finished back in July. So I had a bit of a break, and I thought I'm just going to kind of, ground myself, think about things. And I was taking this selfie, or trying to take a selfie on this beach in Mexico. And I suddenly just had this feeling like, what am I doing? Like, what is this? What is this selfie for? What is, where? And I was sort of thinking, oh, well, I'll put it on Instagram. And I don't know, I just suddenly was like, what am I about now? And what's my what part of myself do I want to put out there? I've spent a long time working with other people and their stories, and is it time to look a bit at my own and, make that connection again? And I just suddenly had this feeling like I didn't want to create another version of myself. That was very clear. I think there's kind of been Marina, the screenwriter, and Marina, the coach, and Marina, the number two in someone's business. And, I've had a lot of different kind of personas, I guess. And I think I wanted to own some kind of persona. I think that felt comforting at the time, but now I was going into this space of, I'm this holistic person, and how do I maybe articulate that? And I have a feeling it's not going to be through this selfie, was the feeling. It was going to be another way. And I thought, I suddenly thought, well, what is it that connects people and stories and social media? I think we have something called social media storytelling, which is actually slightly different from what I was thinking of. What I was thinking of was actually a much more, almost a documentary approach. It was kind of fly on the wall. Like, if I was just observing this person or this brand, what would I see today? Just today, and again, not much to do with, products and sales necessarily, but really just who are they? And I thought perhaps there's this thing around brand documentary, around real stories, and that's where the I guess the seed of the idea came from.
So why would taking that photo of yourself on the beach, that selfie, why would that not have been Marina? Why was that a different version of yourself?
I think because at the time I was thinking, okay, right, I know I want to start up a content creation business. I love creating content. And I think at the time, what was happening a lot was, and this was like only 2 years ago, it sounds as though I'm saying, 10 years ago, but really it was only 2 years ago. It shows how much, media changes as well. But it was very, personal brand, quite posed, quite polished. People were curating their profiles a lot, and kind of, it just suddenly, I was just like, I don't do this. Like, I can't do this. I can kind of see why somebody else might want to do it. And if they want to do it, I can help them do it. But I'm just not, this isn't me. This isn't me at all. And therefore, what is me? What's my kind of vibe? And is that going to work for content creation? Am I going to have to do these things that everybody else is doing? Like, getting their cup of tea and kind of posing, and, this kind of pseudo documentary thing, like we're following you around, but actually it's really contrived. Or am I going to try and do something totally different? So although I was excited about this idea, I was also like, oh, that's brought up, some more uncertainty really about what that looks like.
And do you feel you're achieving what you set out to achieve?
It's funny, I was saying to somebody the other day, because in my head at the time, I was like, right, kind of 2 or 3 months and I'll get this brand out. And at the time, it obviously now it's called The Real Life of Brands. Before, it was going to be more, something media, I think. I was still in that thinking really of, it's got to be something media and it's got to be understood to be, it took a while for the thinking to fully change and develop in myself, to this concept of being more real online, to this concept of revealing, to doing more behind the scenes, and actually articulating that took a really long time. So I hope that answers your question, but it was sort of an evolving process. And I would say it's taken a good 2 years actually to really come to articulate that and to embody it more myself online.
So who are you working with? Who are you helping?
So I work primarily with coaches actually, because I guess what positions a coach really well to use their real story is that they're going to be working already with real stories. Every day they're listening to somebody's real story, whether that's just today somebody's describing an emotion about something, that's still a story. So they're all kind of already in that place of stories. And often I find that with coaches, they've probably started this business on account of an experience that they've had themselves. So something, a life-changing or a life-changing experience, either positive or negative, or a change in life direction, and that tends to be their story. So it's a good thing to go with. It's real, it's present, and it is connected to their work as well. So it does work really well with coaches. That said, there are loads of brands who want to start bringing more real storytelling into and behind the scenes into their business. It wouldn't be so, I guess, well, I think there's some resistance to kind of using actual personal stories when it comes to the larger brands, because they keep kind of going back to that kind of brand document, really, of kind of like, this is who we are and this is our values, and is this really going to work? It becomes a bit of a grey area for people, I think, and so there's some resistance sometimes. But that said, a lot of brands are asking for this, so it's not just individuals who are used to speaking and telling their story. I think it's other entrepreneurs and brands as well. They need to know what parts of the story, what parts of the real story to show, to tell, and how can they get that across, and how can they get it across in an enjoyable way, so it doesn't become something, any kind of chore, or sort of like, oh, we've got to talk about this today. And, I think it's getting on board with the stories themselves and perhaps even celebrating them. Yeah.
So why do you think we have this fascination about storytelling?
I think probably for the reason that I said earlier, like I think we need that identification. I think we're inundated a lot with aspiration and inspiration, and it's wonderful to have a goal and to see something that somebody's doing, kind of go, oh, I'd love it if that happened for me. But I realized really quickly as well that in order to kind of think about that as a real goal, I would need to first identify with that person, or with that journey. I would need to kind of be really realistic about how this is going to go. It's like none of us wake up one day and go, and then we were a TED speaker, having yesterday not been one, or whatever it is that you want to be doing. But for me, I think it was like I need that identification. Again, yeah, it makes us feel like we're not alone. It gives us ideas as well. It kind of goes, oh, okay, they kind of did it that way. Maybe I'll try that instead of what I'm doing, which maybe isn't working so well. It's like guidance, but it's through this story, which is always, we love stories. We always want to know what happened next and who's involved, and that's where I love the part about the challenges, actually, because if we just see a story where everything was great from the beginning to the end, we don't really remember it. Nothing happens within us, nothing changes within us. We just kind of go, oh, well, that was lovely, and it's kind of totally unmemorable. So I think as human beings, we have to like share a bit of those challenges and those hard parts. Yeah.
And do you think that's where the sort of the glossy imagery that we've been seeing is actually totally unmemorable, because it's not anything that interests us or piques our interest, because it's not a challenge or seeing people's journeys?
I think absolutely, and particularly this year, and I think actually COVID would have really pushed this forward as well as an idea, but we are all kind of being called upon to be more real, and I think we are finding that, particularly with brands, that same content that's just going out, the aspiration, the kind of, I think we're just not seeing it anymore. We're not feeling it. We're not connecting with it. And also we're just saturated, there's so much content now anyway. What is the content that's going to speak to people? And it's going to be the content that's real. It's going to be the content that is willing to take a little bit of a risk in order to connect with you. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like, is this brand really willing to connect with me? It's all very well them saying, oh, come on, connect with us. We've got amazing products and, this is wonderful. But actually, are you going to connect with me? And I think that's where we've got to with social media, definitely. And you can kind of see it happening. I mean, the whole behind the scenes movement has just completely exploded last year with and particularly curiously, it was massive. The film studios have kind of really led the way on this. They decided to show behind the scenes from a film before the film had even been released, which is actually a massive risk on their part. Um, and especially for a product which costs millions and has millions of investors and could completely flop, it's a massive risk. And I thought, well, there's really something here. If the Hollywood film studios can do this and they can share that online, we can do it. We can afford the risk to share something a little bit more of ourselves and our brands in order to have that connection, in order to invite people towards us, basically. Yeah.
And if you think about how social media has evolved to, particularly Facebook and Instagram, to have the storytelling aspect, people can actually document their days from the story perspective and using that. A lot of people now are sort of swiping instead of scrolling. And I think that's become because they realize actually you can have one facet in the post, but you see you see the whole person in a story.
Absolutely. I think that tends to be the way to go with it. They'll be like, my bit more curated pictures are in the post because I like it to look, a certain way and reflect, I guess, at least a brand, perhaps even brand colors or something like that. But then when it comes to stories, we can kind of relax a bit. And I was saying to someone the other day, well, why are we ever, excuse me, are we only ever going to do this on Instagram and places like that? Like, would this kind of more real chat ever happen on LinkedIn? And obviously quite a few people said, well, the thing is, it disappears after 24 hours on Instagram, whereas on LinkedIn, it's, there forever. So I think there's something about 24-hour disappearing content that allows you to relax a bit and just take a moment in time. But actually, I would say, I really think you can do that on any medium. I think people are interested in moments in time, definitely, and a series of moments in time, short moments in time. That's what we want, and that's what perhaps gives us a deeper sense of the essence of that person and brand. I think so, anyway. Yeah.
So you mentioned you had this epiphany on holiday, and that's how you've created what you're doing now. What were you doing before?
So before I had worked doing personal branding and marketing and content creation for a property company, which was headed by an entrepreneur. So it was a combination of both the content creation for the company itself, which involved things like property developments and things like that, and the process of a property development, and then it was combined as well with personal branding, with putting her story out there as well, and drawing more of opportunities to her as well as an entrepreneur.
And what else have you been up to in the life of Marina?
Life of Marina. Well, I also write comedy, and I wrote a short film. I wrote it actually a few years ago. It's about 5 years ago now, and then I crowdfunded it and got it made in 2018, which was great because it was a classic case of, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. And then someone just said, oh, I'll make that with you. And I said, oh gosh, okay, let's do this. Let's not resist this process. And it was really fun. It's only 5 minutes long, and it's very kind of silly comedy, but that's definitely something I love, is sort of humor and a bit of comedy and not taking things too seriously. So I write comedy. I did a stand-up course earlier this year before we went into lockdown, and it was the most terrifying experience I think I've had in years. But I would say to anyone, you know what, just do it anyway. It was a very supportive course, and it really did give me confidence. I can't even kind of exactly say where, but just somehow I just feel more confident having done that. So I love comedy. I love funny things. I love films. I do watch a lot of films, and I love nature. I kind of get out. I live near a park, and I'm just a big content consumer, sort of introvert really. So I'm kind of quite happy consuming content for hours a day and making it obviously as well.
So as an introvert, that was a big deal getting up on stage and doing stand-up.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, there was a lot of overthinking going on. But I mean, being in a group was brilliant because obviously you could, I would relax more seeing what other people were doing, and seeing that they weren't trying to make it perfect and, doing too much planning in advance. They were just kind of getting up there and doing their thing and being willing to experiment. And that's very good for me, I think. I can plan a lot in advance. And sometimes it's good to just be much more in the moment. And the stand up allowed me to kind of take a random thought I'd had that week and make a story out of it, actually. But instead of trying to draw people into the story so that they think more, it was just more about just I'm going to tell you this story, whether it's funny or not. Like I just want to grab your attention with this story. Yeah, it's really interesting. I would probably carry on with it. I think after lockdown, there was the opportunity for an online course, but I wasn't really sure how that would work. So yeah, I think I would do after lockdown. I would do something more with it, I think.
So something I've heard throughout a lot of what you're saying is the importance of connection. Why is connection important for you?
I think actually, as an introvert, I can spend a lot of time alone. Being wonderfully creative and doing the things I love, but I do need to balance that with connection and interaction. And I kind of love nothing more than to find that connection with people. I think that's what some people say. Oh, introverts don't want to connect with people. They don't want to. Or they do, even that they don't like people. I don't think that's true at all. I think it's just that we get tired sometimes doing it. but actually, connection with the right people and perhaps more one-on-one. I'm not a huge fan of massive crowded networking rooms. I don't probably do as well there mentally as I do just connecting with people one-on-one. And I like to just start a conversation with them and see where it goes. And incredible opportunities have come through making, I don't want to say the right connections, like right and wrong, but through making connections which feel right. Okay, yeah, which feel right. Huge things have come from that, partnerships, collaborations, and the wonderful way that we can all help each other when we're connected. So I work quite hard at that, probably because I'm an introvert and I have to work a bit harder at it, but also because it's worth it. It really is worth it.
And something that I'm hearing, Marina, is how you are. A lot of what you do is how you feel. It's all about how you perceive things, and it's very much from that perspective. How would you describe how that helps your business?
Mm. I realized that I am terrible at working on things that I'm not invested in. Like I have to have a feeling about it. And this has come up a few times where I've just thought, well, this is just a sort of standard procedure with something, and it doesn't matter that I don't, but actually it just doesn't really work. For someone like me, I think it's better for me to seek out those things I really care about and being able to support that person or that movement that a brand is trying to make or something like that, and really go for it. I'll give a lot to that. So I think definitely it is all about how I feel about it, really. And I do tend to, I realize as well when I'm speaking, not just here, but generally to clients, I'm constantly talking about feelings, not just mine, obviously, but, how do they feel about something, especially with the story. You can't be too sort of cut and dry about it. Ultimately, this is somebody's real story. So there needs to be, some awareness that they need to be in touch with some of those feelings around it and can be supported, that they're not going to be alone, just thrown out, something's going to be thrown out there and what's going to happen, and too vulnerable. So I do talk about feelings a lot. I took a personality test can't remember, it was a couple of years ago, and it said I was like all about that, really. It was just all about the feelings. So yeah, it's just part of who I am, I think.
So collaborating with people that you have personal connections with, the real life of brands, that's what you're all about now. What if you hadn't have had that epiphany? What would you be doing?
Gosh, I think I definitely, the circumstances around, having taken the break, having had the time to really connect with how I was feeling at the time. There we go again, feeling. I think it's kind of impossible to think that I wouldn't be at least self-employed. I mean, I think I almost went down that road had I not had the selfie experience. I think I almost did go down that road of quite kind of marketing strategy, very much to do with producing, I guess, more corporate content. I could have easily kind of gone down that road and thought, you know what, I'll help brands. We'll create something that looks nice. I don't know. And again, it's like, well, where's the feeling there? So I think it just had to go this way, really. I think it was the right time. If not that, probably working for another entrepreneur. I've got a history of working with entrepreneurs in a kind of number two role. And I probably would have maybe gone for another role like that. Yeah.
And how much has your sort of background of being a copywriter helped you with crafting messages with people?
A whole lot, which is funny because at the time I was slightly ungrateful about it, if I'm honest. I was a bit like, do I really love just being, not just being a copywriter, but I think at the time I was working with all kinds of, again, just not really knowing what kind of brands really interested me. So I was doing all kinds of writing for just different things, and some of it was good and some of it was, it felt just somehow a bit bitty at the time, I guess, and a bit unplugged. But actually, of course, it's been a huge, huge asset. And there's the beauty of writing copy, and I don't know if anybody will ever say that, but I feel this way, is that it gets you writing every single day. You're constantly writing when you're writing posts, when you're, along with journaling. It just constantly keeps me in the flow of writing, and that really helps in a lot of areas of my life, really, and with the screenwriting and being creative. I'm just used to doing it. I think we can get blocked up quite easily, and then it becomes this like horrible kind of thing that we have to surmount. And actually, the more we do little bits of writing, the easier it is. So yeah, copy is everything, really. I think people do read things. Someone said to me the other day, well, do people actually read posts? And I said, yeah, they do. They really do. When it's got a story, when it's got something we want to read, they will absolutely read it. Yeah.
And why is it important for you to write authentic content?
I think I can't do anything else now. I think I've just got to a point where it feels so unnatural to. I mean, that's not to say I couldn't write somebody's web copy, in their voice, but it would still be authentic. That's the thing; it would still be their authentic brand, their authentic, or the authentic brand leader. But I think it connects me with myself, and again, it connects me immediately with others. When I write authentically, or when I post, if I do a little video and I'm just speaking from the heart, I'll always get a positive response. And I don't mean like, woohoo, your video is great, like not that kind of response, but more like just that connection again. Like somebody says, oh yeah, that's really fun, I've seen that too. Or I get that connection. That's what comes back to me when I'm more authentic. And also it's just easier. I think there's this strange myth that doing very curated content is somehow easier than doing the real content. That is not true, everyone. It is much easier doing authentic content. However, you do need to practice. It's about practicing it, and it's about finding yourself in it, and also being willing to see that it can be a process. You're not going to wake up tomorrow necessarily and speak exactly how you see yourself speaking in this process. You have to just kind of do it and go from there. Yeah.
Can you differentiate for us the difference between curated and authentic content, just to be really clear on that?
I think curated content would be something image-wise would probably be quite kind of posed. Maybe just feels a bit unnatural. It feels a bit like a almost like magazine kind of imagery, which obviously has its perfect purpose in a magazine, or fashion or something like that. And obviously for fashion, posing for a photograph is very important. So I'm not saying, but for the kind of brands and businesses we're talking about here, I think the difference, where you can shift for the imagery is perhaps just having somebody take a photo of you where you're actually just doing something and you don't know it's happening. I think that's very easy. And then you don't have to think, am I looking this? Am I doing that? And the trap that we all fall into, actually, I don't anymore. I have a massive rule about it. But the trap that I used to fall into was if I didn't like something, you keep retaking pictures or rewriting something or doing another take on the video. And actually, that really kills the vibe of the authentic vibe of what you want to say. I have a one take rule, which we'll see how that goes over the next few years. But right now, actually, it's not working too badly. It's like, just get it out there. I do a one take. I say what I want to say. And it's the same with photographs, because otherwise we can just go round and round for a long time trying to get the right photo. And each time we do that, we just lose a little bit of the in the moment feel. So yeah, sorry, to come back to curated, I would say is sort of, too posed and planned, I guess. And perhaps that curated thing is rooted in the intention to perhaps too much to sell something. It's like, is your intention just to show, I do think it's different in retail. If you've got a shirt, you need to show the shirt, obviously, things like that. But more if it's for like entrepreneurs and small businesses, just, is that like act natural, like just do your thing, and perhaps have someone just take a few snaps. And that would be much more connecting for people than a posed photograph, which you probably hate doing. A lot of people don't like doing that anyway. They don't feel comfortable with it. So yeah, and I think authentic is just really thinking like, what's my intention here? My intention is actually to connect with people. It's not just to hit them over the head with another product line necessarily. It's actually to connect with my followers. Yeah.
So by stopping selling and just being real, you're saying that you'll connect more and deliver your message better.
That's what I'm seeing really happening now. I definitely think there was a time when we were sort of really in that aspirational place, but I just don't think we're there anymore. I think we want this real connection, and it comes back to what you and I were saying one time about purpose. I want, as a follower of a brand or a person, I kind of want my values there to be reflected in them. And it's a subtle thing, because you kind of go, well, I probably follow a whole load of celebrities. Are my values really aligned with the celebrity? You don't need to analyze it, but there probably is something subconscious that makes you kind of go that they're sort of my type of person. And I think that's really underestimated by brands, really, really underestimated by brands. I think they focus very much on being the best at something, and actually it's probably being connected. That really is it. Yeah.
So how much do values take sort of precedence in a branding exercise or a branding positioning?
I think they do, but what I would, this is the way I do it. So, because traditionally people would talk about brand values and words like integrity, honesty, efficiency, things like that would come out of brand values. What I prefer to do is to start with the story. So I get both the brand leader and the team, hopefully, and I get them on a one-to-one as well, which always is interesting. And I get them to talk about their experience of the brand, of what they're doing, of what it feels like to be part of a team that is working on this, of projects. And it's from there, it's from the story that we start to hear the values. And they may not be the same as the kind of quote unquote brand values that someone does through a brand value exercise. It's more to do with a collective story, or a collective set of values from stories. it's almost like if you're watching a film and the protagonist is let's say sort of chisel jawed amazing guy, and he's the hero of the piece, but then he reaches a challenge, and perhaps some of the things we thought about him originally are different now, not negative or positive, just different, and you kind of go, well, actually he's this sort of person, and he's changed in this way. That's really what we're looking for, is the values that we've gained through experience, I think, are really powerful. I hope that made sense. But yeah,
no, it's lovely. It's really interesting, and I think that when there's so many different angles to sort of take on board, but ultimately it's not that difficult. It's because it's just about you and who you want to come across in terms of what you're trying to say, what your message is. And I'm not talking about this on a big company scale. I'm talking about on the individual scale. And what is the importance of what you have to offer to the world.
absolutely. And I think we all underestimate that. And I think in a way, where we started with some of the social media platforms, particularly, for example, LinkedIn, we're there to be professional. That's what it said. It's a professional platform for people to find jobs, to find business partners, things like that. So we kind of go, oh, right, I'm a coach, then I am a accountant. But I think what's really happened now is that we're all willing to see a much more holistic version of ourselves. Being real is being all of those things. We know very well that the CEO of this tech company is, also has a family, or, also is a terrible golfer on the weekends or something. It happens. It's all real anyway. So what's the difference if we see that or don't see that? Do you know what I mean? Would it really change my mind about that person's company if I saw that they couldn't bake for love nor money or something? I think actually we would like to know that. I think we'd like to know that these people are human, and that we're not just the function of our jobs, and we're not just the people we are in companies. We are lots of different, we have lots of different hats. We have lots of different moods, and I think that's exciting. I think that's what we want to know about. Yeah.
And I think all of the different platforms are very complementary in allowing you to be sort of show a different side of who you are. And yes, LinkedIn predominantly is the more professional platform, but it's so much more than looking for jobs, which is what people perceive that platform to be. There's an incredible way of connecting with everybody. There's so many people who are on there, and I get so much value from LinkedIn. And then I guess you've got Twitter, which is that sort of very sharp, sort of, you've got to really think about how you're scripting what you write, because you're very limited on your characters. And then you've got Facebook, which is a lot more relaxed and sort of more documentary, and Instagram is sort of like the same but a little bit higher version with images. So you've got different platforms to present yourself, but you still need to be authentic in all of those.
I think absolutely. And I started a conversation on LinkedIn. I basically realized that I'd brushed my hair to do a LinkedIn video, and had not brushed my hair the last time I did an Instagram video. And I was like, why is that? And obviously, a lot of people said, well, Instagram is more relaxed. And I said, well, then by that rationale, could LinkedIn be more relaxed? I mean, both platforms are used for business. Absolutely, hugely. Instagram is used for business as well. So is there room for those platforms to evolve a bit, I guess, and maybe not be so like, yeah, this is the professional place, this is the fun one, and this is the family one. Or maybe we just like that too much. We go, oh, I'd post that on here, but I wouldn't post it on there. Maybe that helps us in a way to just sort of have a bit of a boundary with things. But I decided I was going to experiment with some things on LinkedIn. They won't be outrageous, obviously. But I thought, well, where does this where does this sense of professionalism begin and end on LinkedIn? I wonder if I can push the boundaries a bit and what kind of effect that would have. The hair post itself is still going with with getting likes and comments and views. It's quite funny. It's been my most popular post, and it's about it's essentially about hair. So I don't know.
I think also the boundaries have definitely become blurred during lockdown, purely because everybody is working from home. So you're now portraying a very different perspective. And where you would literally walk into an office and put your family life behind you, now you can't do that. You are back to being the whole person again. And I love that. I think that has made a massive difference, seeing people operating in environments that are much more challenging, and they've had to multitask. They've had to deal with little children coming up to them, and you hear the way that they sort of deal with those elements. Even Joe Wicks, when he has his little ones, when he's doing the exercise, I've been doing day 50 today of my daughter and I. We've done every single Joe Wicks exercise with throughout lockdown.
Oh wow, yeah.
We love the moments when he's got his two children in there and his wife's there, and because that he's having to do something in an environment at home, and he's got his professional I'm a PT sort of face on, but then his kids come in and you just see that wonderful light up moment where you see that beautiful love for his children and his wife. And that, for me, I love that is the authenticity.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, what's not to like? I mean, I think now I can't imagine anybody looking at that and going, oh, you know, I just wish this was more something. It's like, well, that's exactly what it is. It's somebody teaching us from their home. I think the COVID thing's been absolutely I think it's changed things forever in terms of what we consider to be professional content. If you watch the BBC, presenters from the BBC are taking doing stories from their phone. Pretty. I'm just going to be really frank, like pretty, like you can see up there. No, it's too close. It's
I
too
know the
close.
one you mean, yeah.
Exactly, and you're like, wow. But that's on the BBC because it doesn't matter because the message is the same. Like they just need to talk about what they need to talk about. They're reporting, and they need someone to deliver that message. And that person is on lockdown at home, so it doesn't really matter. And what I'm hoping is that it will bust open some of the kind of blocks that we all might have, especially as entrepreneurs, like solo entrepreneurs, because it's just you really. You don't have a team necessarily, or small businesses where they go, oh, we can't do this yet because we need a film crew, or we need a proper location, or we need, and all these things that are quite expensive to do if you're at that stage. I think it's going to just dissolve all of those blocks. I think people are going to go, you know what? Why am I even worried about this? I'm just going to do a whole series right here from my phone about something that I really care about. And obviously I'll be consistent with it because that's always a good idea, guys. But yeah, it's all doable. We don't need to wait until this moment when we've had our hair done. Back to the hair again. When we've had our hair done, our makeup done, I honestly think that's not. Somebody even said the other day, "Do you think this will spell the end of the Kardashians?" Which was a grand statement, but the idea I think they were getting at was that anybody can do this fly on the wall kind of thing, and we're used to seeing much lower grade, none of this kind of special lighting and everything, and we're enjoying it, we're loving it. So I think things have changed probably permanently on that front, I'd say.
Well, I'm in agreement with you because I am literally sitting in my home, and I've sort of created this podcast from scratch, just sitting at home and connecting with people from all around the world. And it's just little old me sitting in my office, looking out at the garden right now and talking to you on a podcast that, just over a month ago didn't even exist.
Absolutely. That's what's really exciting are the things that are cropping up from having a bit more time. I always feel a bit awkward talking about the positives of COVID because there are terrible things going on. So, but just in this respect, a bit of time to think about, again, like what you were saying, the why of something. What do I really want to do? What would I like to speak about? And a lot of people who weren't doing that, I think, are now going, you know what, maybe I will just try out this this video, or maybe I'll try doing an interview with somebody, because we're all on Zoom. It's like there's no choice now of like, but do I do it in a studio? Because it's like nobody can. So let's all do it on Zoom and not worry about it. Let's just do the interview. And I think it has made things easier. I can be a bit perfectionist about some of these things. And I think, well, I really want it to, especially when it comes to documentary, I'd want it to really feel like a documentary. I'd love it if we really had a documentary cinematographer and we did this project. Of course, there's like plans like that I'd still like to do, but it doesn't mean we can't, do those things on a daily basis, really. Yeah. And still have impact, still have connection. Yeah.
There's that word again, connection keeps coming back to it. So I always sort of listen out to hear what word sort of comes through. And when I put the audio into a transcript, it comes up with the most popular words. And I don't think I need to guess which one that's going to be. It's definitely going to be connection. Marina, it's been amazing having you today on the Focus on Why podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How would people get hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn through my strange hair post. No, you can. But you can also find me on Instagram at Marina Vision, as it sounds. The website is under construction at the moment, but watch this space.
Excellent. Well, when it's up and ready, I'll put it in the show notes for anybody who's listening to this down the line. They'll be, oh, it's there. Brilliant. So how would you like to finish this podcast? What sort of pearl of wisdom or message would you like to leave with the audience today?
I think, actually, I'm going to say, just go ahead and do it. What you want from it will come through doing, not through planning it too much. That's definitely it. Just start and it will lead you where you need to go.
Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star Apple Podcast review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook, and become a member of my inspiring, uplifting and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. I help people to focus on their why with clarity, uniting their passion with their purpose with a plan, to create the life they truly desire. If you would like me to help you focus on your why, then please book a free 20-minute coaching call via calendly.com/Amy Rowlandson. And if you haven't already, please sign up for the Friday Focus weekly newsletter via my website, amyrowlandson.com. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.